Alright, welcome to our lesson on ancient China. Alright, so the geography of China. So barriers isolate China. You've got an ocean, you got mountains, deserts, isolate China from other areas. They're cut off from the rest of the world. You also have major river systems that affect Chinese life. You have the Huanghe in the Yellow River in the north, and the Yangtze in the south. Now, the Huanghe, or the Yellow River, leaves what's called loess, which helps create a fertile silt when it floods, which really helps in China's geography for growing things. We also have environmental challenges. These floods can also devour whole villages if they're not careful. When you have geographic isolation, you have lack of trade, which means the people here have to learn to be self-sufficient. Okay? The North China Plain area between the two rivers is the center of civilization. That's China's heartland, and I have a map that is going to better explain that. Okay, so this area here in red is the area of China that we're looking at today. So you'll notice that you have the Huanghe that gives the Huanghe a distinctive color here. Even today, the Yellow River produces lots of silt. It's named that for the color of its silt. The silt is nurtured early in development of Chinese civilization and is still a vital resource today. Okay. Now we're going to be looking at three dynasties, but two are located on this map. We have the Shang, which is in the dark red. Alright, and then the Zhao dynasty, which is in the light red, like over here. Over this way, okay? Shang, and then all that is the Zhao, okay? Two major dynasties in Chinese history. So, the first dynasties arose around 2000 BC. The first ruler, actually the first dynasty was called the Xia dynasty. And its first ruler was Yu. Yu's flood control system will help tame the Huanghe, the Yellow River. And then we'll have the second dynasty, the Shang dynasty, which will develop around 1700 to 1027 BC. And this dynasty was the first one to leave written records. Early cities, the cities were built of wood, such as Anyang, one of its capital cities. The upper class live inside the city, and the poor people live outside. One of the things that makes Shang cities unique is they have massive walls that were used for military defense. And it's out of the Shang dynasty where we get the development of Chinese culture. Remember, China sees themselves as the center of the world, and anybody else is considered uncivilized. You know, the group is always more important than the individual in Chinese culture. Family is a very important institution. It is the central institution. So respect for parents is an important virtue. Older males controlled the family property, and women were expected to obey all men, even their own sons. Now when it came to social classes, the king and the warrior nobles led society and owned the land in Shang culture. Well, what about religious beliefs? Alright, so they believed that the spirits of the dead, their ancestors, were able to affect family fortunes. Priests would scratch questions on animal bones and tortoise shells. And then oracle bones would be used to consult the gods, and their supreme god was by the name of Shangdi in the Shang culture. Alright, during the development of writing, so writing system uses symbols to represent syllables, not ideas. So people with different languages are able to use the same system. There is a huge number of characters to make the system difficult to learn. And so that's Chinese culture. Alright? All of these. Family, social classes, religious beliefs, and the development of writing make Chinese culture very unique. Alright, now we're moving on to the next dynasty. 1027 BC, the Zhao dynasty takes control of China. And it's during this dynasty that the mandate of heaven, which is going to be something that is kind of around for a long period of time. And that's believed that a just ruler had divine approval. So this is developed as a justification for change in power to the Zhao. So the Shang are gone, and now the Zhao are here. So every time a different dynasty takes over, the what's the word? The mandate of heaven, that is what they use to justify their reasoning for why they exchange in power from one family to another. And so we call this the dynastic cycle, a pattern of the rise and decline of dynasties. All right, let me go back to let me go to the next slide. Let me show you something. So here we have the dynastic cycle. So we'll see a new dynasty will come to power. The emperor will then improve the government and make it more efficient. The lives of the common people are improved. Taxes reduced, farming encouraged. Problems begin, extensive wars, invasions, etc. Then the taxes increase. Men are forced to work for the army. Farming gets neglected. The government increases spending, which leads to corruption. Then droughts, floods, and famines occur. The poor lose respect for the government. They join forces and attack landlords. They find a strong leader who unites them. Together they attack the emperor. The emperor is defeated. And then we're back to the beginning, where a new dynasty comes to power. And that's pretty much Chinese history, over and over and over and over again, until you get to the 20th century, when they start thinking, okay, that mandate of heaven, that's a bunch of crap. All right, we're going to take on communism. That's what they do, and they become a communist country, or in the 1930s and 40s. All right, and China has been very different since then. But one thing they are still proud of is their long history, being one of the oldest civilizations in the world. Not many countries can say, does your country have 3,000 years of history? Well, we do. All right, Egypt is one of the exceptions, but even then, that's not quite the same. All right, so the Zhao dynasty will control their government through a system called feudalism, which is a system where the kings will give land to nobles in exchange for their services. Over time, these nobles grow in power, and then they begin to fight each other. The Zhao will help create improvements in trade and technology. The Zhao dynasty built roads, they built canals to improve transportation, they used coins to make trade easier, and they produce a cast of iron tools and weapons. All right, and food production increases. We're also going to see a period of warring states. We'll see a peaceful, stable Zhao Empire will rule from around 1027 to 256 BC. And in 771 BC, nomads actually sacked the capital and murdered the monarch. Well, his son Liu Yang becomes the new, Liu Yang, which becomes the new capital of the Zhao dynasty, and was built afterwards. And you'll see internal wars will end up destroying the traditions that were set before. Okay, unification of China. And so after the Zhao dynasty, it's going to be the Qin dynasty will be the first dynasty to unify all of China. Parts of the Chinese people were not fully unified in the Zhao, Shang, and Xia dynasties. Alright, so a new emperor takes control. Shi Huangdi is going to unify China. He ends the fighting. He begins conquering new lands. One of the things he does is he creates 36 administrative districts controlled by Qin officials. He has a legalist prime minister, and he murders Confucian scholars, burns their books, and establishes an autocracy, which is a government with unlimited power. He also creates a program of centralization. He begins building highways, irrigation projects. He increases the trade. He sets new standards for writing, law, currency, weights, and measures. His harsh rule does include high taxes and a repressive government. Alright, when his son loses the throne to a rebel leader, Shi Huangdi's son loses the throne, and then we get a new dynasty, the Han Dynasty, one of the longest reigning dynasties in Chinese history, which will last during the time of Rome, so about 200 BC to about 200 AD. Alright, that is it for our notes on China. Make sure you watch the video on the differences between Confucianism and Taoism, which took place which were people that were around the time of the Qin Dynasty. Alright, let me know if you have any questions. Have a good night.